Ladies and gentlemen, my name is TotalBiscuit. I'm here to ask and answer one simple question. WTF is darkest dungeon? This has been in early access for quite some time, and it was indeed quite the early access sensation. There are few games outside of the usual roaming nomadic genre that is the early access survival game that attract such early interest, but Darkest Dungeon was one of those games. Probably a combination of striking aesthetic, a little bit of roguelite element tossed in there for good measure, and uncompromising difficulty resulted in this game being a very early success on Twitch, in particular, because it was rather enjoyable to watch everybody suffer as their party members, who invariably were named after streamers, family members, or subscribers, died horribly in the dungeons of complete and total despair that this game happens to offer. It's a bit weird going into this game having played a bunch of the early access and now playing a bunch more of the finished version. Because I think my time was split about 40-60. You know, 40% of it in the early access version and then 60% after that, to a total of now about 26 hours of play for my first impression of Darkest Dungeon. And in that situation, it's like, is it really a first impression now? I mean, it's not really, is it? Because I played the early access version. You know, we'll call it whatever you want. All I'm going to say is, this is information based on 26 hours of play, so if you're looking for endgame stuff, you won't find it here. You never find that in my videos anyway. So, this is by Red Hook. Let's dive in and show you a little bit of Darkest Dungeon with a dankest biscuit right here, which is my little Hamlet, which is a rather wretched hive of scum and villainy, as you might imagine. There we go. So, welcome to my estate. It sucks. I can't imagine anyone wanting to inherit it. I didn't ask for this. I don't know what happened. Now, the storyline behind this game is relatively simple, and I won't spoil anything beyond that. The previous owner of this estate delved too greedily and too deeply, and he unleashed unholy horrors upon the world, which include quite a lot of Chthonian, or Elder God, Eldritch, Lovecraftian, whichever you wish to use to describe it, creatures, as well as the regular undead, pigmen and necromancers and all sorts of things. Some really awesome designs, actually. It's got a lot of gothic and Lovecraftian horror themed into this game. In fact, you could even, to some degree, describe it kind of as a horror dungeon crawler. It is, at its core, though, a four-person turn-based battle RPG in which you crawl through a dungeon, go into various rooms, interact with objects, and fight monsters. Now, in doing this, of course, you collect loot, and this loot can be used to gradually upgrade your estate. So, if you think about how Rogue Legacy worked with its progression system, where you had your estate and you built that up, it's kind of like that, only you don't die every time. The adventurers can be recruited from this stagecoach right here, which allows you to pick from a selection, and each building in the hamlet can be upgraded several times. So, in this case, the stagecoach can be upgraded to provide larger numbers of heroes at any given time, which is an upgrade that I'm tempted to grab, but I think I'm going to save my deeds for something else. And the hero barracks here, which will allow you to increase the size of your roster. So these heroes over the side here are heroes that are employed by me. It, strangely enough, doesn't actually cost any money to hire these people, and thank God, because they die quite regularly. But these heroes here are available to recruit. So there are, I believe, 14 classes in the game, which is a rather large number, and these classes also have customizable skills. Now, generally speaking, a class is going to be good at a specific thing, but you can customize them quite nicely to be a little bit different, which I really quite like. So let's go through some of these classes and tell you a little bit about them. You might be thinking, well, what's with the options menu, TotalBiscuit? You haven't looked at that. Well, I mean, it is a 2D game, so I suppose we can dive into it. That's a nice little glossary here of the various things. If I go to options, there's not really a lot to see. Full screen on or off, resolution options, and you can turn the 3D pivot effect, which I love, by the way, off. Don't do that. It's awesome. Why would you do that? Audio allows you to mute the narration. Don't ever do this. I'll try and give you a little bit of the narration during this video. I'll try and cut out my audio in post-production to let you hear some, because the narrator for this game is so good. Oh my god. It adds such a level of atmosphere for narration that I haven't really seen since Bastion, honestly. And I love it to death. But you can do separate sliders here. The only complaint that I've really got is that they didn't kind of do sliders. But really, I mean, that is the biggest nitpick in the universe. You know, it doesn't matter. I prefer sliders. I like sliders. not realized that by now? I certainly hope so. So you can turn tutorials on and off, and you can customize your experience. And we'll talk a little bit about these features later on when I speak a bit about the changes that happened between the first early access version and the release version. So you can turn off things like monsters leaving corpses, combat delay penalties, and all this sort of thing. And I honestly think it's a nice solution because some of these changes were quite controversial. And I'm going to go into that. Plus, the very odd situation that you find yourself in when you're developing a game in early access and you're taking a lot of community feedback. Outside of that, this is other. You can enable or disable anonymous data collection. I can say I've had no performance issues at all from this, which is good because some games that do this whole data collection thing do tend to lag a little bit as a result. Either they get frame rate drops or longer loading times, although I will say the loading times in this game at times can be only slightly too long. I mean, I really am nitpicking here. It's not that important, but just want to let you know that. And you can also increase the time that the unit box stay on the screen, so if you are not reading too quickly, you can deal with that as well. So it's all good, and there are language options. I will say, based on the research that I've done, that anything other than English, the translations are apparently not that great. So if you're looking to play this in French, German, Polish, Russian, or Spanish, then just bear in mind that the translations may not be awesome. And that's unfortunate because the writing in this game is surprisingly good and actually adds to the atmosphere in a real way. Characters interact with each other, especially once they start going insane, which is a cool mechanic that I'll talk about in a minute before we dive into some dungeons. And there's also, of course, the narrator, who I can't imagine speaks in Spanish. I haven't tested that, but I would imagine the translation's gotta just be text, right? I mean, if that guy can speak 6 languages, I am very impressed. Let me put it that way. Okay, so let's explore the estate before we go into a dungeon, and I'll show you what everything does. So, a key mechanic within the game is stress, and this little bar here is how stressed out a hero is. In the dungeon, you will gain stress, which is a very standard mechanic that seems to crop up in anything Lovecraftian. The idea of going insane as a result of being exposed to these eldritch horrors is a key theme to Lovecraftian games, and this is, of course, no exception. So this stress bar is going to get bigger and bigger as things happen to you in the dungeon. When it hits 100, you're going to have your resolve tested. Now, most of the time, this means that your hero is going to crack. Something in their mind is going to crack, and you're going to gain what's called an affliction. And these are always bad. Like, they could cause the hero to become out of control. They start to ramble and rave, which actually can cause a bit of a chain reaction with your party because they'll depress the party and stress them out too. And in order to get rid of these afflictions, well, usually you have to give them some time off. So I can do that right now. Let's see. I don't really have a lot of money here, but Peanut Butter Gamer, as you can see, I've named most of my heroes after YouTubers because I like to see them die. Peanut Butter Gamer is going to go to the bar. He's going to drink away his troubles here, so you can do that. And you can upgrade the tavern to increase its effectiveness and unlock slots. And this annoying caretaker is going to show up every once in a while and block a slot because the game likes to be a dick like that for some reason. So right now, he's going to drink this away. And when I go into a dungeon, depending on the time that's passed in that dungeon, he's going to have his stress reduced. But sometimes bad things can happen. You know, he may go off on a drunken bender and I can't use him next round. You know, that's a thing that can happen. And the Abbey does a very similar thing. It has 3 kinds of religious stress relief. And again, these can have similar effects. And the characters themselves can gain various perks and quirks as they go through. Most of them are quirks. Honestly, a lot of the things that happen to these guys are pretty bad. So let's have a look at one of my more experienced players. What is Jesse Cox doing? Well, look at this. Well, he's got a lot of quirks here. So these quirks are positive. So he gains speed if the torch, which we'll talk about later, is above 75. He gets plus dodge, stun resistance. He's got range skills. This is very, very good here, actually. This is a really, really nice thing for him because I've kind of geared him out as more of a ranged character. And these are negative quirks. And some of these are pretty serious. You know, he's not allowed to gamble in town because he's a known cheat. He's thin-blooded. He's bloodthirsty, which can cause him to have certain reactions in dungeons to particular events. He is too curious. You know, he often runs, if he sees a pack of books, he'll run and read them, and that often results in bad things happening because they're full of awful old god knowledge that corrupts the mind. He also has 2 diseases because, you know, he's Jesse Cox, of course he does. I need to get rid of his tetanus because that actually reduces accuracy. In fact, actually, both of these diseases are pretty bad. Weirdly enough, rabies is actually considered a pretty good disease to have because 15% damage is arguably better. But you'll see he has a pretty bad accuracy modification because of these diseases. And I can send him to the sanatorium to get him treated, but it's going to cost money. So on this character screen, you're going to see a bunch of resistances. The game has things like stun, blight, and disease, and bleeds, and all that sort of thing. So this is pretty much self-explanatory. But this right here, this is the death blow. Now, the health system in this game is very intriguing. I love the way that they designed it. It is a standard health system until you hit 0 HP. Now, in most regular games, you just die. But in this game, that means you go onto death's door. Now, this increases your stress because the character is suddenly terrified of dying. But every time he gets hit, he has a chance of dying, but also a chance of surviving. So it adds this really cool element of tension. But as with a lot of other elements in this game, it also adds a degree of potentially frustrating RNG. So you do have to watch out for that. If you are the sort of person, by the way, that hates dice rolling and mischance and things, maybe don't play this. Because honestly, it can cause unbelievable frustration. So outside of that, he's got 2 sets of skills, camping skills and combat skills. Now, combat skills are exactly what you'd expect them to be. So each of the character classes has 7 combat skills available, with the exception of the Abomination, who has 2 sets of skills, because he can shapeshift into this horrific form that has its own set of skills. Really cool class, actually. Really cool design. It was something that was added on later after the initial early access release. So in this case, he's mostly a ranged dude. You know, pistol shot. Very, very basic kind of thing. It'll tell you what it does. It's going to have a damage modification, its base accuracy, crit modification, and a couple of different effects. Now, you might notice some little pips up to the top right here. So these pips are really important because positioning in this game is a huge component of the combat. You have 4 people in your squad, and they are ranked 1 through 4. So rank 4 is at the back, rank 1 is at the front, and so on and so forth. Now, depending on where you place your characters, those effects and their abilities are going to change. So in this case, you can see his preferred position is either rank 2 or 3, and that's because all of his skills work there. So if you look at the little pips, you'll see, oh, okay, so I can use this skill in rank 2, 3, or 4, and it's going to hit rank 2, 3, or 4 on the enemy side. So vitally important. It's actually a key part of the strategy and what makes the combat really interesting. This focus on positional play. And you even have abilities that can change position, and of course you can swap position as well. So the position of the enemy is just as important as yours. So you got Grape Shot Blast here, that's an area of effect attack, which is really nice. Tracking Shot, which is a buff, which is very nice because it really overrides all of this awful stuff I've currently got on this character, which I really need to get fixed, but I don't have the money for it right now. And Open Vein, which is a melee ability. The thing is, he doesn't have to be a ranged guy, because there's other abilities that I can unlock for him here. I can give him Wicked Slice, which is a basic melee attack with a pretty nice crit bonus. I can give him Point Blank Shot, which gives a knockback, which is very nice. And it also forces him to move backwards 1. So some skills actually manipulate your movement. In fact, there's an entire class called the Jester, who is very much focused around manipulating his movement around the battlefield. And of course, you can grab Duelist Advance here, which moves him forward. So you can spec out your characters in different ways. Now, when you pick them up from the stagecoach, they have 4 of these skills unlocked at random. So you're going to be dealing with that kind of off the bat, but if you have the Guildhall, which you get pretty early on, and I put Jesse Cox in here, I can spend money to unlock these other skills, as well as upgrade these skills as he levels up. So you kind of get the idea. Now, you might wonder what camping skills are. Well, camping is basically resting in the middle of a dungeon. Longer dungeons let you camp, which means that you can use some of these skills to regenerate your health, gain buffs, and also fix up stress. Reduce it. The problem is, of course, while you're camping, you can be ambushed, because this game is a dick and likes to murder you. So that's what camping skills do. Nice and simple. In fact, I might actually select Gallows Humor for him, because Gallows Humor is generally a pretty good buff. So there you go. Though that's how the heroes work, and they're all different. You know, the character class variety in this game is phenomenally good. I'm really impressed by it. Not only, as you can see, is the art style incredible for each character. You know, I love this man-at-arms. He is old grizzled veteran with a huge mace. If we look at Sinvicta, he is a master occultist with the turban there. If we have a look at Cry, he's a Hound Master. He has a dog. He's a dog. He's great. So that's awesome. And there's Dodger. She is a grave robber. Very much a sort of witch hunter from Warhammer Fantasy-inspired character there. She uses a pickaxe as her melee weapon. She's also all about throwing knives. I've kind of spec'd her out mostly as a throwing knife character, although I do like to have pick to the face because flashing daggers and thrown dagger don't hit the front rank, so it's nice to have that. But you can, again, spec her out for all sorts of things. You can have her at the front with lunge. You can use poison darts if you want her to be someone that afflicts poison on people. There's a lot of choice. And I love that level of customization, and you can also tailor your abilities depending on which dungeon you're going into. The blacksmith here is fairly self-explanatory. You can upgrade armor and weapons with it. Again, you have to upgrade these buildings with these resources. There are 4 types of these: busts, portraits, deeds, and crests. And this represents you recovering the artifacts and the possessions of your past ancestors, I suppose, to upgrade your estate. Some of these can be pretty hard to get, and I mean, you could describe the whole dungeon crawling aspect as a grind to upgrade this, but since the entire game is effectively designed around dungeon running, calling it a grind is like saying, well, you know that game which involves playing football? It's such a grind that you have to play football in order to advance in the league. Isn't it a grind that gameplay is so repetitive? It's like, shut up, that's silly. Now, outside of that, there's a couple of different nice little features. You can go to the survivalist here to upgrade your camping skills. I generally don't do that, but getting crests seems to be easier than any other resource, so it's kind of nice to do that. And you can invest a lot of those crests in here if you want to sink them into something. And this is the Nomad Wagon. This lets you buy rare trinkets. If I were to criticize anything about the way that the setup works here, it's that equipment is not that interesting. The trinkets are pretty cool. Often they have a lot of downsides. So if I open up here, you'll see I actually have no trinkets because I sold them all because I'm running out of money. But this guy has a Crusader-specific trinket that gives him plus 33% heal skills, plus 3% crit if he's in position 1, but he's not as resistant to blight. And then the Swordsman's Crest here is going to actually negate some of that heal skill, but it's going to give him plus melee. So I like this because this actually nicely cancels out the other. But these are fine. This is what I'm kind of bored with, because the upgrades for the equipment is a very, very linear thing. And they're not that interesting. So as you upgrade them, they're going to gain stats. And that's kind of all they do. I don't know if at maximum rank, because if I go to the blacksmith, you'll notice that, you know, that's a level 3 sword that I have here. You can go up to, I think, level 5. And then there's also level 4 armor smithing. I don't know if those max level weapons maybe have some cool special effect on them. I'd love to see maybe some cool, unusual procs or something like that, and maybe legendary weapons. I don't think those exist because you can't get weapons as a drop in this game. They're just upgrades for the character. And of course, those upgrades disappear if they die, so you need to be a bit careful with your investment. But I think they could have maybe fleshed out the equipment system a bit more. It just would have been more interesting, because I find these very linear upgrades to be a bit uninspired. Now, I did mention the sanatorium. This is to treat quirks and remove diseases and so on and so forth. Again, all of this costs money, so managing your party and making sure that you're not in a really bad position is pretty important. So, that pretty much explains the town part of the game. That's where you're going to be spending your time between missions. Let's get into some dungeons, because this is where things start to get really interesting. I think I'm going to do a medium-level dungeon. Now, as I said, I've played about 25, 26 hours this game total, but half of that was a restart, because I did the early access version, and then I did about 12 or 13 hours on the new version. So I'm at sort of veteran rank 3 or 4. I've got a party of guys that are rank 3 or 4, which means that I can safely run veteran missions. Now, what you might notice is that if you actually... I'm not sure if you can take a lobby here. I don't think he'll go, actually. If I recall correctly. If you put him in, he's like, nope, not going in, because he's way too low level. I think. I'm not 100% sure. You might be able to run it. I will say that you definitely can't run the low-level stuff with high-level dudes. So if I select here, this is a apprentice rank mission. If I send Dodger in here, she's like, no. So I think you can send lobies into high-level missions, but there's no way you'd ever want to do that, because they'll probably get murdered. But you can't send high-level characters into low-level missions. So it's usually good to rotate squads out, and in fact, it's actually required, because of the stress mechanic. It's very rare that you'll be taking a person on multiple missions in a row, simply because it's so dangerous. Their stress is persistent. So if they're stressed out, then horrible things are going to happen to them. They can even have heart attacks and die. So you want to be careful. That's why these guys who have high stress that went on my last mission are currently resting and trying to recuperate. So We could do the Weald here. I'd love to do a little Cove run as well, because I don't think you'll have seen that one. The Cove was added later after the early access, and it's got a bunch of Eldritch... Is that even how you spell it? Eldritch? I suppose it's that. Fish monsters. You know, very much Cthulhu from the deep kind of thing. And this, of course, is the darkest dungeon, which you actually have access to from the very beginning, but people are like, nope! You can send them in, but they're gonna die. They're really gonna die. But this is where you get like some of the best, really rare stuff. It's your ultimate goal, is to defeat the darkest dungeon, which is gonna take you a while, because even getting a squad of characters to level 6, that's hard enough. Getting them upgraded and equipped and ready to go, oh, and then of course, you know, you don't know what's gonna be in there. You know, it could very easily murder you. So we'll go to the Weald, I think. Which is actually going to have this is going to be an extermination mission. We're going to have to complete 100% of boss battles. So the missions it offers you have different goals. This one is to kill a boss, which we could do, but I don't really have I've got a bit of a team for lower level missions right now, but a lot of them are like level 0. I wouldn't want to send level 0s in against a boss. This is room exploration, all that sort of thing, and each of them have different rewards. But we'll do exterminate, which is a medium length, actually it's a long length mission. Long length veteran mission. Yeah, that's a good one, I think. That's a champion mission. We don't want to go anywhere near there. And that's a boss mission, all that sort of thing. So, yeah, let's go to the Weald. So, each of these different places is going to have different things that you're probably going to want to go for. If I recall correctly, the Weald has quite a lot of poison in it, so I do need to watch out for that. But I'm pretty sure bleed is quite effective here, if I remember correctly. Don't take my advice. I keep forgetting what's good and what isn't. All right, so let's build our party. So we're going to take Jesse. Jesse is good in position 2 or 3, so we'll think about that in a minute. So Boogie is looking pretty strong right now. We could take him. We'll probably actually take 2 men-at-arms, a cultist, who is my main healer here. And yeah, I think that works actually. 2 men-at-arms is pretty cool, because you can equip them with different skills. So you can be a tank, you can be a buffer. I think they're both pretty good at that. So we could do that. Or we could bring Dodger around. Let me show you as much class variety as I can here. So I'm going to bring Dodger along with me. So she's good in position 2 or 3. And Boogie, he's kind of geared out to be mostly a buffer, I think. There's a really cool ability that I like called Retribution, which is actually a counterattack. Unfortunately, I don't really have the money to unlock it right now, so we'll go with that. Bellow is a debuff, that's a basic mace attack, and then Command gives plus accuracy, and Bolster gives plus dodge and plus speed. And he's got rank 3 skills here, and he's also using a rank 3 weapon, and he's got pretty decent gear too. And we're going to bring along some blight resistance as well, because I know there's going to be some blight in this area. All right, so what you do after that is you provision. This, again, is a really cool element of the game. The reason I like it is because you are almost betting when you provision out. There are some things you need, like torches, for instance. You know, unless you're going to do a dark run, which is quite difficult but can give you more loot, you want some torches. Now, it's going to give me a shovel, and that's usually a hint as to what I'm going to need in here. So I'm probably going to take... This is a long mission, so I'm going to take a second shovel. I really don't have the provisions to do this, but honestly, I'm just doing this for demonstration purposes. If I lose, okay, big deal. So you want to bring some food along as well. And you're going to see this. I'm spending money on this, and this is going to make things a little bit difficult, as you might imagine. This food is going to be required because sometimes the guys get hungry, they need to eat. If they can't eat, they're going to get stressed and they're going to get damaged. So we need some food, and we're going to camp as well. So we need that, and we could honestly use, I think, some medicinal herbs. I'm not sure if I can... If I knock off 1 food, I can afford 1 medicinal herbs. This, by the way, for a long run, is probably suicidal. I don't have any more money, and I really want to do a veteran run here, so I'm probably going to get myself killed. Which, to be fair, is going to give you a nice indication of what you can expect in Darkest Dungeon. So, with a frankly awful selection of stuff, we shall embark and hope that stuff can be found in here. So welcome to the Weald, to the Weld, or whatever it is. You're going to be finding a lot of poison zombies and things like that in here.
Corruption has soaked the soil, sapping all good life from these groves. Let us burn out this evil.
So, welcome to the dungeon. We've got fun and games. We've got everything you want, and lots of pain. In this dungeon, you will move from room to room, and you will encounter things. Now, up here, you'll notice that there's a torch. Now, this torch represents your light level. Now, the darker the dungeon gets, the more dangerous the enemies get. But there are benefits to being in the dark. Your crit chance goes up, I assume, because you're desperate and fighting in a corner. And also, you get more loot. And their justification for that is that you can see more of it in the dark because it glints. No, I don't think that's how eyes work, but never mind. We'll just go with it. However, it's much, much safer if you're able to keep your light level high. So here I will be able to scout, which is going to give me a warning of what's coming up here every now and again. And I also have a high chance for surprising monsters, which means I get the first turn. So, let's move. Here we go. Let's see what we find. Now, in between each of these, you'll find corridors. Now, this is what's called a curio. There are tons of different items in this game that you can interact with, but a lot of them are risky. Now, most of these items have an ability to mitigate that risk by using a piece of equipment. So I think for the old tree, you use a bandage to make sure that you don't end up getting cut or whatever, but we could take a risk here. We could see what's inside. So let's search the tree. There's treasure in it. Great, we got some food and some busts. However, that could have very easily also been poison or something along those lines. So it's this really cool element of risk-reward that they throw in there. And this game is, frankly, all about being greedy. Oh, the grave robber, needless to say, wants to rob the grave and has almost got a disease by doing that. So that's one of her quirks. She actually has, she has necromania, dodger, and egomania, dodger, and is obsessed with sainthood. No, I won't go with that, but you get the idea. So she did that outside of my control. So really, these little quirks here are bad, you know, and you get so many of them as well, which is kind of neat because it adds this unique sense of character to each of your heroes, and each hero ends up being just a little bit different as a result of that. Ran into a trap, which is not good. Now, that generated stress. You'll notice my stress meter here. If this hits 100, I'll gain an affliction. If this is 200, the character has a heart attack and is instantly on death's door. That's a new mechanic. And I'll talk a bit about those new mechanics once we get into a fight. All right, the light's a little bit dim now, so we're starting to gain stress. Oh, cool, we got a scout. That's nice. So now we have a little bit of warning as to what's up ahead. So for some, in this case, oh, there was a secret door back there. Okay. So, secret doors usually have really, really great treasure. So, I'm going to go back, and I'm going to access the secret door. And I didn't bring a key, did I? Which means I'm not going to get as much treasure, but this is going to be good anyway. So, these I can sell afterwards. That was actually pretty bad. If I brought a key with me, I would have been able to unlock the secret compartment, and I probably would have got something of very high value. But, such is the way of things. I ran into the same trap multiple times. I'm an idiot. I am really dumb because you can disarm those if you're careful enough. All right, I'm going to run into a battle now so we can talk about the battle mechanics. Here we go. Hello! Oh my god, those look horrible. Is that a tree that's going to murder me? I don't know. But we surprised them, so that's good. All right, so we are now fighting. Now, it's turn-based, as I said before, and it's based on how fast your characters are as to who gets to strike first. So, we need to think about what we want to do here. What's the optimal strategy? Probably kill the gladiator first. A little bit weaker than the ghoul. The ghoul's going to take quite a lot of work to bring down. But, yeah, probably kill the gladiator, I think. So, 22 HP. Let's look at his weaknesses. Well, he's kind of weak to debuffs and bleeds. He's actually weak to almost... I wouldn't say he's weak to all those things, but you know, these are medium-level guys. Their resistances are a lot better than regulars. So... what can we do with our occultist here? Well, we could do an abyssal artillery, which is only going to hit him at the back. What we should probably do is a weakening curse. So we're going to debuff him, which is going to reduce his base damage. And this guy can hit pretty hard, so debuffing him is pretty good. It's also good to debuff this ghoul. I probably should have done that too, but I've got a turn to do that, so that's cool. All right, Dodger's turn. So notice the difference between these skills. If I use flashing daggers or thrown dagger, I can only hit him. Can't hit a front target. But if I use the pick to the face, I can hit him. And that's going to give me an estimated damage, 6 to 13. That's not bad. I think we can kill the cultist gladiator off this turn. We go for that, and that's a hit for the 9 there. And you'll probably notice just how cool and stylized the combat is. And you know what's weird about it? Which I think is actually really impressive, is they managed to make it really awesome and stylized. And we took him out. There we go with the wonderful slash. He's dead. With bare minimum animation. Like, if you notice, it's actually like a 1-frame animation. The hit. You know, if I crush this guy, if I hit him, and I'm not going to do that just yet, I'm going to probably buff our dodge before we go into combat with the slavering ghoul. And it's going to hit me. Here we go. You'll notice, like, it's basically a one-frame animation combined with camera tilt and sort of movement effects. And it's... usually, I would criticize this and say, well, that's lazy. But it works. It works so well with the aesthetic. And the instantaneous response when you attack a character is super satisfying. You know, as soon as you click, it's BAM! You know, and this is a turn-based RPG. This is not necessarily the sort of thing that I would expect to work that way, and yet it does, which is super impressive to me. Alright, I might want to put a tracking shot on that guy, because that's gonna maybe give a buff. But honestly, I think we can just cut away at him. He's got a 40% resist to bleed, so we can maybe open him up a little bit and give him a bleed effect. So that's going to bleed him every turn. But we're about to take a pretty bad hit here. Skull. Oh, the dodge. Lovely. This is going really well, actually. Usually slavering ghouls hit pretty hard. But we're doing pretty well. All right, let's hit him with the mace. There we go. And I'll work away at him. We should hopefully be able to kill him. We took bare minimum damage here, but I'm going to do... You know what? Actually, let's just debuff him because I'm a little bit... He, I think, has an attack that... Yeah, he's got Howl, which I don't think actually gets debuffed by what I just did, but it's a really nasty thing anyway. So we can throw daggers or go pick to the face. Pick to the face has 90% accuracy. They're both actually about the same, but the knife has a higher crit, so we're going to throw the knife. There we go. Everything about the way that this combat is executed is, to me, super satisfying. And in a turn-based RPG, that's not a word I would tend to use, satisfying combat, and yet this does have that. And it's made all the better by the awesome narration. Every time something horrible happens, he'll basically give out a portent of doom. But when something good happens, he'll say something inspirational like, confidence surges as the enemy crumbles, and all that kind of thing. And I feel great every time I hear him say that. Yeah, obviously, you're going to hear the same thing multiple times, but it's either inspirational or terrifying. The narrator truly adds a depth of immersion and just this awesome feeling to the game. All right, we're going to dig our way through here. Otherwise, we would have taken damage and all that kind of thing. So we've made our way through. And that was a good first fight. You know, we took bare minimum stress damage. We're trying to manage our resources here. Everything's looking pretty good, but we're going to have a room battle coming up here. Ah, we have a eerie spider web. Guess what I do? Shovel may open it? No, that does not work on it. Unfortunately, it also makes it disappear. So you need to learn what all of these little curios do. You can look it up in the wiki if you want, or if you don't want to spoil yourself, that's fine too. Can we burn it? Nope, we can't burn it. Okay. Do we want to stick our hand in it? Sure. There was a risk of being eaten by a spider, but whatever. Okay, we're going to top the torches up. You'll see torches are a limited resource here. I'm actually really... Yeah, actually, never mind. I have quite a lot of food. I thought I didn't. There was another stack of it. What you might notice also is that inventory is very limited, so sometimes you're going to have to sacrifice treasure in order to pick up important resources like bandages and more food in order to survive in the dungeon. Alright, this is a much nastier fight. We have a tenacious crone here and a blighted giant. That's going to be pretty hard to fight here, so we might want to watch out for that. He's very slow, but we do want to watch out for that. Okay, so what can we do? Well, here I'm going to try and kill these guys off first. So I'm going to use abyssal artillery at the back. And they dodged it. That's really bad. I don't like that. We can throw some flashing daggers, perhaps. That might be a way to go. I really want to take the crone out, because the crone has this really nasty debuff. In fact, both of these have a really nasty debuff here. 6 to 13. The crit chance is 17%. We'll throw the dagger, I suppose. Maybe that wasn't the best idea. And she's going to put a curse of vulnerability on us. And that combined with the kind of damage that this guy can do is really dangerous. Now, so far it's been so good, but things can rapidly get out of control. As debuffs start to stack up, as crit starts to stack up, things can get very, very unpleasant in this game. And, of course, there's permadeath. And we're about to take some nasty confusion here, which I think is actually going to reshuffle our positions, which is not good because dodge is not designed to be there. So I'm going to have to move here, which means I have to give up my turn, which kind of sucks. And the same here with Eldritch Pull. This can actually pull him forward, which is exactly where he doesn't want to be, you know? Jesse is okay being here, and he's going to take a lot of stress damage here, but I don't want him there at all. So he's probably going to have to move back at some point. But I can take a pistol shot from here and miss, apparently. Not good. Okay, flashing daggers, please? Thank you. At least the crone's gone. That's good. We might have to buff up some damage here. You'll notice I get a new skill by being up front, but I'm not going to... It has actually a pretty good stun chance, but he has a 70% stun resistance, so... I'm not liking it. I'm not liking our chances, so I'm going to have to move him back here, which is not ideal. This arrangement should be okay. There we go, and now we're going to get poisoned, which is not good either. Thankfully, he resisted it, so far so good. All right, you get the idea of the combat system then, but the real meat, and you know, what really makes this game awesome, at least in my eyes at any rate, is just how stressful these battles are and how this game really plays up risk-reward in a big way, you know? If you don't want to spend a bunch of money on supplies, then you don't have to, but you're at risk. You know, you may not have a bandage when you need it, or an anti-venom when you need it. You may not have the key that you need to unlock a chest, but then again, maybe a chest doesn't spawn. So you've got to think carefully about that. Plus, it also loves to let you push your luck. That just one more room feeling. I could leave this dungeon at any time, but I don't want to do that because, of course, if I retreat, they gain stress, and I want to spend as long in here as possible to give my other heroes a chance to rest. So, as a result, I'm going to push on and push on and push on, and I'm going to take risks, and I'm going to continue to do that because I know I can get treasure. If I complete the quest, I'll get rewards. And overconfidence. Oh my god, huge hit. Now he's on death's door. Overconfidence is, as the narrator says, an insidious killer. This is bad. He needs a heal bad right now. Thankfully, he picked that up with the... The problem is my healer is in the wrong place, as you can see, because of the rearrangement. So this is really stressful now. He could die. He could die right now. So probably the best thing I can do here is actually increase our dodge and hope that he can dodge the next attack that comes in. Because he might die immediately, and then he's gone. That's like a level 4 guy that I spend a bunch of time on. That would be awful. All right, let's throw a dagger. And we're going to keep fighting against this giant and hope against hope that we can bring him down. Can I do a stun? I mean, I might want to put a tracking shot on him because this is quite a long fight. So this is going to give him a buff. Please let me heal him. Okay. So just to make matters worse, if you hate RNG, the occultist has maybe the most powerful heal in the game, but it's random as hell. This could be a 0 heal. Please, good heal. Crit for 28. And it's those moments that you just throw your hands up in the air and celebrate. This game uses the random nature of it in a really great way because of how tense this game is constantly. It's kind of similar to XCOM in that regard. And it's the sort of RNG that I can really appreciate. I don't love all games that use random systems. I don't. I wish I did, but I do not. The thing is that this game uses them so well. And you can see all of the stats and everything clearly transparent on the screen. You are being given the power to take risks. And yeah, you may get hit horribly, but you know, maybe there's a way I could have negated that by increasing my dodge and all that sort of thing. You've got some control, but you never feel like you're completely in control. And honestly, I think that's the real strength of the game. Now, I could hit him, but I'm thinking of it just continuing to increase these dodges here. And increase the speed as well, because this guy's really slow, so this is giving me a bit of an edge. And buffs stack pretty well in this game, by the way. Okay, let's throw down this weakening curse here, because all of our guys are fairly safe. Let's try and weaken him. Let's reduce the amount of damage he can do here for a couple of rounds. Big hit to our tank, but he should be able to handle that. So it is about risk management. That's the whole point of the game. And you're going to lose people. And you're going to lose people that you invested time in, and that's going to suck, but ultimately, heroes are a renewable resource in this game. Getting a level 0 hero is free. You can replenish your roster very quickly. The problem with that is that there are times when you end up in a situation that you have to run at a lower level content that you maybe don't want to run, that you've run a lot already. And it's always going to be challenging, especially with a level 0 team, which I do like. Even playing against the lower level creatures, I still feel challenged. Just because the game likes to play the difficulty on a knife edge. I feel the difficulty, at least at this stage of the game, is very well balanced. I have heard some people say that at the end game, it can become a little bit easy in comparison, but I personally really, really enjoy where I am right now, kind of in the mid-game. It feels dangerous, and I feel like I'm taking risks, but I'm still really enjoying that aspect of it. So I think things are going really, really well, and I'm having a blast with it. I had a blast with it in the early access version. I love it more now, and there's a few mechanics that they've added that I want to talk about, and these mechanics actually caused a bit of controversy, because, of course, it was a change to the way that people were used to playing the game. So the first mechanic is the idea of delaying, of stalling out a fight. So what people used to do in early access is they would use a lot of stun-heavy characters to stall out a fight. They'd kill everybody but one, and then they'd repeatedly stun or use a skill which didn't do damage so that they could repeatedly heal their guys up. Because you can't heal out of a fight without using food. So in order to actually do anything, you've got to heal within the fight. As a result, as you might imagine, people exploited that fact. Now, of course, the developer didn't want them to do that, naturally. So what they did was, if a fight goes on too long, it increases your stress, and there's a chance of reinforcements for the enemy. And that can be pretty brutal, because some of those reinforcements are nasty beasties. Also, as you repeatedly stun an enemy, it gains stun resistance. So stun locking an enemy becomes very, very difficult. Stun is still very powerful in this game, but they basically nerfed it quite effectively there, I think. Can we finish him off? We're kind of getting there, but I think I'm just going to keep the dodging up right now. It hasn't really helped me too much up to this point, but here's hoping we get a dodge. It's never going to happen, is it? But it's okay. That gives me one more heal. We have a bleed going on here, which kind of sucks, but it's not too much damage. I think we can probably handle that. Going to swap back around here, get off one last heal, and then try and kill him off, I think. We're going to open vein here. That was a good hit. We should be able to finish him this round. So that was one mechanic. Some people didn't like that. I think it's a good change. The stalling out tactic was boring. I don't think the game should encourage it. I'm going to deliberately, incidentally here, not attack him because I want to get one more heal off. Just so I can top my tank up. And a good crit. That's what I like to see. He even actually reduced some stress because of that. Crits do that. Oh, and there's the dodge. She is Dodger after all. Good dodge percentage. Now we can finish him off with the thrown dagger. There we go. He's not quite dead. He's on 1 HP. Okay, we can finish him off with a... That's cool. We get one more heal out of it. There we go. Dodger gets a 1 HP heal and now bleeds. Bit of a downside to that. There you go. Big crushing attack. And we got a key out of that, which is great because we don't actually have a key, so I'm pretty happy to see that. We also have an ancient coffin that is slightly ajar. Do you want to open it? Let's use our cultist to open it. Ooh. Insight into the nature of the world. He is now a wheeled adventurer, which gives him a buff. Minus 20% stress damage in this area, which is cool. So let's camp out while we talk about a couple of other mechanics. I'm going to use the firewood here. So this is going to let me eat some food, which is going to regenerate some of my health. And I can now use some buffs and stress release abilities. And you've got 12 respite points that you can use based on how much food you ate. And you've got these skills here that I can use. So I can prevent nighttime ambush if I want, which actually is a pretty good idea. It's going to increase stress slightly because this is a kind of evil thing that I'm doing, but it's worth it to prevent a potential ambush. You can also do a dark ritual, which is also kind of great. Heals 50% and removes mortality debuffs, which I could actually do on him if I wanted to, but it's a lot of extra stress and it nukes my torches, so maybe I don't want to do that right now. Also, we can do some weapons practice, increase damage for the next few combats, and you can customize all of this, and I just love that aspect to it. There's Gallows Humor going out, which unfortunately seems to have pissed off my man-at-arms, but there you go. And there we go, and now we rest, and that's going to buff everything back up. So, the second mechanic. He's really getting stressed out. I probably should have not done that. Anyway, the second mechanic. Corpses. So you may have noticed on the ground that the game, when you kill an enemy in most ways, not all, there are certain ways which will not. Oh god, will you stop fiddling with corpses? Good lord, at least we got some treasure out of it. That's quite nice actually. I like that. That's a good little trinket. There's a trap here too. Let's try not to run into it. There we go. The grave robber's usually pretty good at disarming. Oh, we like it. So corpses are left on the ground after certain attacks kill. Now, this means that the enemy maintains its position in the rank and file. Now, before this, in the early access version, when you killed someone at the front, everyone else would be forced forward. So, generally, the strategy was just to kill the guys at the front, because guys at the back usually are weak when they're at the front. Like, the crone probably can't use one of her abilities at the front, so she's going to be a lot weaker where she is right now, where she would be if I could pull her to the front. And, of course, there are abilities that could force her to move, too. As it stands, we're going to throw down some Abyssal Artillery here. So, I think corpses are a good addition, because I think that strategy was overpowered, and it also made the combat somewhat one-dimensional. It eliminated choice, you know? Because in most cases, unless it was a really tough enemy, just nuke the front rank. And once the front rank dies, the guys at the back, like the archers and the guys with the pistols and the casters, they're all completely vulnerable because they can't use half their abilities. So corpses, I think, was a really good way to deal with that. Bear in mind that you can turn this off. You know, you don't have to have that. So if you don't want to play with that option on, that's entirely up to you. But I actually like corpses. I think corpses is a great addition to the game. It was a really smart addition. Let's go with a little buckshot or grape shot here. And last but by no means least, we have heart attacks. Now, this happens when you reach 200 stress, puts you instantly on death's door. So the reason they put that in is because people were not worrying so much about stress. Like, oh, stress, big deal. Well, stress is now a much bigger deal. It's not just a resource hog that you have to heal. It can kill you. I actually like all of these mechanics, but I have to admit, since I do not have endgame experience, I don't know just how balanced those mechanics are at the end game. And I know for a lot of people it was just a surprise. It's like, oh, well, I'm used to this game, I feel confident, and now you've changed it. Well, I'm glad they changed it. But it does bring up a very interesting point about early access. This notion that in early access, the community has some involvement in the development of the game, and they're buying in at a state where the game could change very, very significantly, I would say. And as a result of that, the game that you bought at launch on early access is not the same game that you're playing later. And if they make a change to the mechanics that people don't like, then that can cause people to get very upset. Ultimately, though, while it's a very interesting notion in my eyes, and I find the whole thing just intriguing in general in terms of the business model, I think, honestly, you get what you pay for when you go into early access. That's gonna happen. They're gonna make refinements to the game. I think in this case that those refinements were for the better. I genuinely do. I think that they've improved the game immensely. And they've added additional layers of depth and difficulty that did not previously exist, and nerfed a lot of unbalanced strategies. And in combination with a lot of additional classes and skills, they've added a huge amount of variety to what is the core of the game. You're going to be spending 90% of your time in the dungeon. It better not be boring. And the wonderful thing about characters having to rotate out is that you're forced to try different combinations. And some of them are very strange, like they don't synergize well together, but you got to make it work somehow. Sometimes you don't have a healer available, and you've somehow got to make it work. And doing that non-healer run and getting to the end by the skin of your teeth, just surviving solely on food and curio heals, is so satisfying to me. I think it's really enjoyable, and I just find a huge sense of satisfaction whenever I do something like that. Am I waxing lyrical too much? Maybe I am. If I were to criticize the game, it would be that often you do have to go back and do those lower-level missions because you just don't have a huge team of high-level dudes. Either they die too much, or it takes a long time to get those heroes to that state. So I think that there is a legitimate criticism to be made in the amount of times you often have to go back to those lower-level dungeons. But as I said before, if you do them with low-level characters and level them up, they're still challenging anyway. It's just you're going to be seeing a lot of the same. And if I were to say anything else, it would be that it would have been nice to see a few different mobs, a few more different mobs at any rate, in higher level dungeons. There are some, but a lot of them are just upgraded versions of existing ones. That's particularly true with the bosses, which is disappointing. I'd like to see, they do improve the AI of the bosses a little bit, and they do shuffle things around and make them a little bit more difficult, but they're still essentially the same boss, and you're going to have to do the same boss multiple times. That's a bit disappointing. What I will say is the boss design is, for the most part, excellent. I've fought several bosses. Not only are they aesthetically wonderful, like they look terrifying. Most of them look terrifying. The art direction in this game, as I've said before, is just that damn good. As you can clearly see, it's a very subjective thing, but this game has a unique style that I've never seen anywhere else. It's got a kind of dark graphic novel-esque aesthetic to me. I mean, it almost reminds me of Watchmen, but a dark fantasy Watchmen. Am I talking out of my arse there? Possibly, but it stands on its own as being so unique. It has its own identity. And everything adds to that, including the music and the ambient sounds, which get worse the darker the dungeon gets.
Death waits for the slightest lapse in concentration.
And of course, that wonderful narrator, as you can hear in the background there. I want a Dota 2 announcer for this guy. Oh my god, we're all over the place here. Oh, this is going to be a difficult reshuffle, but I'll give it a try anyway. I don't really want to put him at the front. I'm going to have to move him towards the back now. That's a pain in the ass. Look at this shuffle. Yeah. I think, yeah, we're just going to have him attack and then have him move forward. This was a waste of a turn. This is not good at all. We're going to take some pretty heavy damage here, I think. Let's have him move to the front. All right, this is a bit better. It's still not perfect, but it'll work for the most part. He's going to take a huge hit again.
Perched at the very precipice of oblivion.
When it comes to art direction and aesthetic design and sound design, this game nails everything in my eyes. Even the simplistic animation just works because of how responsive and crisp the combat is. That instant response when you click a button. It works somehow. It's such a great example of a game that honestly came out in early access and was awesome right from the get-go, and is now just a lot better. No, it's just got more. And honestly, that's what I wanted out of it. Like, it was already good. I just wanted more. My criticisms are minor. Things like, as I said, I think the equipment system could do with being more interesting than it is, rather than it just being linear upgrades. It would have been nice to see them do a little bit more with that. And I think there's a lot of potential for that. I hope maybe we'll get some future DLC that maybe does that. Maybe have like an enchanter that comes along and can customize your weapons with proc chances and things like that. That would be cool. I'd enjoy that. Obviously, you'd have to make the game a bit more difficult to compensate for that idea, but ultimately, this is a dungeon crawler that captures the essence of what I think a dungeon should be. A dungeon is not a place to get free money. A dungeon is supposed to be scary. And there's very few games lately that have done really genuinely scary dungeons. This game does that. The dungeons are creepy, terrifying, they're full of dangers, they're full of risks that you must take. Or, of course, you can choose not to take. I love it to bits. I really do. It's so far my favorite game of this year. Obviously, we're only in January, and it's weird because this game's been out in early access for a while, but
Without tools of iron, you must rely on flesh and indefatigable purpose.
I just don't find it repetitive. And really, that's quite surprising, because there's a huge risk of this game being repetitive. Massive risk. And yet, I just find the combat so cool. It's tactical, it's risky, it's tense, and it's responsive and satisfying. I love it. I'm gonna keep playing more Darkest Dungeon. It surprises me even more because I'm usually not the sort of person that plays a lot of games with this sort of, let's call it overworld progression, where your town gets upgraded through a linear fashion by the stuff that you acquire through your runs. You know, it's a slight roguelite element to the game. I'm usually not into that. And yet Darkest Dungeon has made me a convert, I think, to that idea. Rogue Legacy almost did, but I didn't enjoy the gameplay that much because it was more of a sort of simplistic action platformer. This is a tactics RPG. Actually, it's not. That's not fair. It's not a tactics RPG because it's not grid-based, but it's a battle RPG, and it's a great one. Darkest Dungeon is a triumph. It's so good! I want to go play more. Right now, it's competing with XCOM 2 for my attention, which is unfortunate. There's too many good games coming out right now. What a terrible first world problem we have here. Speaking of first world problems, they're gonna die! They're all gonna get murdered.
As the fiend falls, a faint hope blossoms.
A faint hope is all we're getting here. Darkest Dungeon is bloody awesome. You don't need to hear anything more about that, you know? I would, without hesitation, recommend Darkest Dungeon to people that like battle RPGs. It's brilliant. Just brilliant. And it's available for $20, your original equivalent. You can pick it up on Steam, it's available on the Humble Store, it's available on GOG.com if you want to not buy things from Steam. Entirely up to you. This is one of the hallmarks of, or indeed, let's just call it a high watermark, a gold standard for early access games. This came out looking better, more fleshed out, mechanically more deep, better balanced than it did going in. That's an example of the early access formula working. You know what's sad? If this game came out 2 weeks earlier, it would have won my early access game of the year in the arbitrary awards. As it stands, it's a bloody early shoo-in for 2016's awards. There you go, folks. If you want to check out more of me playing Darkest Dungeon, I actually did a stream of it, which you might find amusing because, let me put it this way, Krendor caused us a lot of problems. It's available over on the unofficial channel, which I'll link in the description below this video, TotalBiscuit Streams, which is basically just a fan-run channel that uploads my streams for people to watch for free, for those who don't have subscriber access to Twitch. So you can go and watch it there. And we're probably going to put up a highlight reel of it as well, because some of it was pretty funny. Ladies and gentlemen, as talked for now about Darkest Dungeon, I could bloviate and extol the virtues of this game for at least another hour. I love it that much. Go and enjoy it. Please. My name has been TotalBiscuit. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, then by all means, do feel free to click the like button. If you disliked it, of course, well, I want to feed you to this ghoul, and he looks a little hungry. I'll see you next time.